Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Praja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Praja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Shamadas Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Shamadas Divine Grace Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Imanamai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Seventh Canto, The Science of God, Chapter 15, Instructions for Civilized Human Beings, Text 48. 49. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Himsram Dravyamayam Kamyam Agni Hotradi Ashantidam Darshash Cha Purnamashas Cha Chaturmasyam Pashuhu Sutaha Himsram Dravyamayam Kamyam Agnihotradi Shantidam Darshascha Purnamasascha Chaturmasyam Pashusutaha Himsam Dravyamayam Kamyam Agnihotradi Agnihotradi Shantidam Darshascha Purnamashascha Chaturmasyam Pashusutaha Himsam Dravyamayam Kamyam Agnihotradi Shantidam Darshascha Purnamasascha Chaturmasyam Pashusutaha I'd like to chant. All right. Himsram, a system of killing and sacrificing animals. Dravyamayam, requiring much paraphernalia. Kamyam, full of unlimited material desires. Agnihotra Adi, ritualistic ceremonies such as the Agnihotra Yagya. Vishantidam, causing anxieties. Darshaha, the Darsha ritualistic ceremony. Cha, and Purnamasaha, the Purnamasa ritualistic ceremony. Cha, also. Chaturmasyam, observing 4 months of regulative principles. Pashuhu, the ceremony of sacrificing animals or Pashu Yagya. Sutaha, the Soma Yagya. Okay, translation. The ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices known as Agnihotra Yagya, Darsha Yagya, Purnamasa Yagya, Chaturmasya Yagya, Pashu Yagya, and Soma Yagya are all symptomized by the killing of animals and the burning of many valuables, especially food grains, all for the fulfillment of material desires and the creation of anxiety. Performing such sacrifices, worshipping Vaishvadev, and performing the ceremony of Baliharana, which all supposedly constitute the goal of life, as well as constructing temples for demigods, building resting houses and gardens, digging wells for the distribution of water, establishing booths for the distribution of food, and performing activities for public welfare. These are all symptomized by attachment to material desires. Okay, no purport, text 50, 51. Dravya sukshma vipakascha dumo ratrir apakshayaha ayanam dakshinam somo darsha oshadi virudaha. Govardhan, do you know where Sankarshan is? Oh yeah? What is he doing? Helping? Catering? Oh, okay. No. Kitchen religion. Okay, translation. My dear King Yudhishthir, when oblations of ghee and food grains like barley and sesame are offered in sacrifice, they turn into celestial smoke, which carries one to successively higher planetary systems like the kingdoms of Duma, Ratri, Krishna Paksha, Dakshinam, and ultimately the moon. Then, however, the performers of sacrifice descend again to earth to become herbs, creepers, vegetables, and food grains. These are eaten by different living entities and turned into semen, which is injected into female bodies. Thus, one takes birth again and again. Purport. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9:21. Te tam bhuktva swargo lokam vishalam chine punya martya lokam vishanti. Evam trayi dharmam anuprapana kata katam kama kama labante. When those who follow the pravritti mark have enjoyed heavenly sense pleasure, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, through the Vedic principles, they achieve only flickering happiness. Following the pravritti mark, the living entity who desires to be promoted to the higher planetary systems performs sacrifices regularly, and how he goes up and comes down again is described here in Srimad Bhagavatam, as well as in Bhagavad Gita. It is also said, Traigunya Vishaya Veda. The Vedas deal mainly with the three modes of material nature. The Vedas, especially three Vedas, namely Sama, Yajur, and Rik, vividly describe this process of ascending to the higher planets and returning. But Krishna advises Arjuna, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, nice Traigunya Bhavarjuna. One has to transcend these three modes of material nature, and then one will be released from the cycle of birth and death. Otherwise, although one may be promoted to a higher planetary system, such as Chandraloka, one must again come down. Chine punya martyo lokam vishanti. After one's enjoyment due to pious activities is finished, one must return to this planet in rainfall and first take birth as a plant or creeper, which is eaten by various animals, including human beings, and turned to semen. This semen is injected into the female body, and thus the living entity takes birth. Those who return to earth in this way take birth especially in higher families like those of Brahmins. It may be remarked in this connection that even the modern so-called scientists who are going to the moon are not able to stay there, but are returning to their laboratories. Therefore, whether one goes to the moon by modern mechanical arrangements or by performing pious activities, one must return to earth. That is clearly stated in this verse and explained in Bhagavad Gita. Even if one goes to the higher planetary systems, yanti deva vrta devan, one's place there is not secure. One must return to Martyaloka. Brahma Bhuvanaloka Punar Arvitina Arjuna. Aside from the moon, even if one goes to Brahmaloka, one must return. Yam prapya na nivartante tadama paramam mama. If one goes back home, back to Godhead, he did not return to this material world. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Om Ganativrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitivachalam Pangam Langate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diditaranam Vanchakalpadribhishcha Kripasindubhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So recently I was speaking with a group of people who aren't, completely convinced of the message of Krishna consciousness, or that you could say they don't understand completely the message of Krishna consciousness, and they haven't committed to the process. But I gave the example that there was, in relation to reincarnation, that there was one, because Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam, whatever you think of at the time of the death, you get a corresponding birth. So what I heard was that there was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was married to another devotee, and which I've mentioned this here before. He was married to a devotee, and they had a very nice relationship. But anyways, this devotee, he was driving by himself. The husband was driving by himself one day, and then somehow or other he got stuck on this train track, and a train was coming. And luckily, and due to his training, due to his piety, due to his devotion, he started to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, which is the thing we should do. If a car comes, if there's some maybe scare of a car accident or planes going down. We don't want that, of course, nor do we want a car accident. But if some danger is there, a devotee calls out to Krishna. It's not that, we see this in Krishna's pastimes, it's not that the cowherd boys, when they're encountering some danger, such as they see Aghasura or the forest fire or something like that, they don't call out to their mother. They call out to Krishna. So that's what a devotee does, they call out to Krishna. And we'd be surprised how many people do call out to their mother in danger. There's so many records like that. But anyways, this devotee was chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. And the train was coming, and his car was there, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And then the train hit his car. Right? Now, he didn't pass away, so he lived to tell the story. But he said that later on, when he was in the hospital and everything, later on he said that I remember chanting Hare Krishna, and then I remember my last thought being, oh, my wife. What will happen to my wife? Which, of course, when you say this to a lot of different groups, everybody, that's so nice, and that's so romantic, or what? That's a good husband. Bhakti, that's real bhakti. And I don't want to unnecessarily criticize people, because people they're ignorant and they don't know and so many things. But while I was giving this talk, I brought up that particular example, and I was thinking to myself, okay, I brought up that example, and I'm sure some people are going to be thinking that this is a good husband. They won't really fully understand how that was a mistake. Of course, somebody in the audience, they raised their hand, and very nice, person. She's a very nice person, and she's, accepting Krishna consciousness and gradually making advancement and all that. she asked, but like, yeah, I mean, but isn't Krishna in everything? Like, I mean, you think about your wife, or you think about whatever. I mean, Krishna is everywhere. God's everywhere. So what's the problem? Can't you just repose your affection, or can't you just place your affection in your wife? And what's wrong with thinking of her at that time? And I said, well, yeah, everything is. I mean, Krishna is everywhere. That's true. But at the same time, Krishna is a person. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadya Adya Govinda Sarva Karnama. Krishna is a person. And like Srila Prabhupada would say, it's like, okay, whether you think of the Son or the Father, there's a connection there. In a sense, when you think of the Father, you may think of the Son, and when you think of the Son, you may think of the Father. And in some ways, I mean, not completely, obviously, but in some ways, they're kind of the same. They're very intimately connected. But at the same time, they're completely different persons. So similarly, Krishna, he's a person. So whether you think of, okay, you can say Krishna is everywhere. He's in the heart of, if somebody is married, he's in the heart of that person's wife, or Krishna's in the heart of that person's husband. But to think that you'll get the same goal is a mistake. And that's what Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever you think of at the time of the death, whatever we think of, we get a corresponding birth. So yeah, I tried to explain that to her. And I also gave the example that Srila Prabhupada gives about if you buy a ticket to Delhi, India, you're not going to a one-way ticket from San Francisco to Delhi. You're not going to arrive in Istanbul. It's just they're different directions. So according to our desires, according to our meditation, then we get different results. But yeah, I mean, we would consider that particular devotee, we would consider that a mistake. So the idea is that here it's being mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada's mentioned in the purport, that there are different lokas, there's different planets, there's different destinations. And much of the destinations that people strive for, at least in the traditionally in Vedic culture, is somehow or other they strive for the heavenly planets. Last week we talked about how people have different concepts of heaven in different religions, and some of them, we really don't agree with, or that wouldn't make sense from a Vaishnava's perspective. But I brought up that preacher and how he said that when he gets to heaven, he's going to serve God for 100 years. And then after that, what is he going to do? Does anyone remember? Yes.
He's going to enjoy himself.
Yes, he's going to enjoy himself. He's going to serve God for 100 years, and then he's going to enjoy.
And was it serve or was it glorify? Do you remember?
I thought it was
Serve, yeah. Serve. So that was there. Now, I remember Devamrita Swami saying that. So I emailed Devamrita Swami, and I asked, Maharaj, do you know which preacher this was? I was just curious, just to, And he said, sorry, I don't remember what preacher that was. But I definitely remember him. You know?
My Guru Maharaj said it was the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Who was it?
The Archbishop of Canterbury. I don't know which one. There's always different ones. It was an Archbishop of Canterbury.
There you go. All right. I guess Bhakti Vikas Swami repeats it in his lectures too. Okay. Guess he likes that one. Devotees like that one. So Maharaj didn't know, But now we know, so that's the beauty of devotee association. You could ask around and get some answers. But he did tell me that another preacher, which maybe I could say after the class because I don't think it's necessary to say his name, and I feel a little bad. But he said that another famous preacher. He said an interesting thing. He said that when he gets to heaven, he's going to drive in a golden Cadillac on gold paved roads, and he's going to. Jesus is the chauffeur? I don't know. He didn't say that. I'm not probably. And then he's going to stop at different houses where angels are hosting parties. Yeah. So kind of is, well, you could give him some credit for imagination, right? Anyways, so like this, there's different ideas in religion, the different ideas of God. I remember hearing Tamal Krishna Goswami mention a lecture. He said in the early days in the Los Angeles temple, devotees went to a Christian church to hear a sermon. They're just, maybe they wanted to give a talk there or something, and they're meeting with a priest. So anyways, this priest, he was given the talk, and Tamal Krishna Goswami was sitting there listening to him, and then the priest said, God is so big, so gigantic, no one's ever seen him. No one's ever seen him. Can't get far enough away. Yeah, exactly. So Mars was wondering, how does that work? What do you mean he's so big you can't see him? And the idea is that you can't get far away enough to actually see him. He's just so big you can never really see. And it's just his big toe. So anyways, there's all these different ideas. Yeah, we just want to serve the lotus feet. But of course, we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear descriptions of the spiritual world, right? Or we hear from Brahma Samhita, how Krishna is there, Chintamani Prakadasad Masu Kalpa Vriksha. He's there, and there's so many Kalpa Vriksha trees and unlimited Lakshmis who are serving him, and Surabhi cows, and it's a whole description of the spiritual world. Krishna's there playing his flute. And if we think about it, and if we analyze other options or other descriptions of the spiritual world, it does make a lot of sense if one decides to accept that there's an afterlife and that there's a spiritual world. The descriptions in the Srimad Bhagavatam make a lot of sense. And that is the amazing nature of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that it describes all that in great detail. And it also describes the heavenly planets in detail, and describes the hellish planets in detail, and it describes the whole creation in detail. So in this way, we are given a very clear idea what is what and what we should be striving for. And I mean, of course, it's difficult for people to accept all of these descriptions of the spiritual world and the hellish planets and the heavenly planets, and to actually accept that they exist. But at least we can personally, or if we're struggling to accept such things, or when we're communicating with others, we can stress or emphasize some of the other aspects of Krishna consciousness that may be more easier to accept or see the tangible benefit. And sometimes, people struggle with that. Like I remember there's one devotee, we were having this conversation, and it was an interesting conversation, but he was saying that in his experience, sense gratification is very tangible. It's It's something that he has experience with. It's something that is that he finds enjoyable. That's real. Whereas Krishna consciousness, he was having a hard time accepting the reality of it. Like, how is this real? So what would we say to that? What do you think, Chad? Yeah. Okay. Faith in the Shastra. What would we say? What do you think, Govardhan? If someone was to say, hey, sense gratification, like if they're out there on books and someone says, hey, sense gratification, it's so real, it's so tangible. You know, I could just go down to Garnett here and I could go to some bars and, you know, hang out with my girlfriend, and it's all very tangible. But you know, you're chanting, you're this, you're that, and like, where's the tangible enjoyment? Where's the you know, how? Want to speak into the mic, or can you? Before Tapas gets mad at us, tells us over the loudspeaker. You there, Tapas? Okay.
First, I would emphasize the foolishness of trying to enjoy something temporary. And although we're chanting Hare Krishna, and we may not see the results directly or right away, we have faith, like what Bhakti Chad was saying, in all the acharyas, that this is the proper path and we should follow. So I would first of all crush their illusion of enjoyment in this material world.
Yeah. Any other? Okay.
The Hare Krishna movement is known and has always been known for street kirtan. And when devotees are taking part in that nicely, and you can go for hours, and the happiness that you can see there is tangible. This is the thing. And the experience of that is also very pleasing. If someone walks in and they're a little bit open to it, and they're taking part, and there's a joy there. And so, and that's the special thing that, Lord Chaitanya gave. The chanting, the dancing, the feasting, and we can argue with that. That's especially if the cooks know what they're doing. And so, and from that, then if you're interested, then you can hear the philosophy. You can understand why and how this is part of a whole process. But the idea that the tangible pleasure of going to the bar and so forth, yes, but then it ends, and then it ends. Then there's a hangover, and then there's and so there's always that aspect of it, and it's limited by your body, which is obviously temporary. So if you can understand, you start reading and discussing, and you understand, oh, this is the soul is directly, and it's eternal.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Well, there's different types of happiness too. I mean, I may think going into the bar and drinking myself blind, hey, well, that's real happiness. I feel it. I know it. It's real. It's tangible. You can experience it too. And listening to listening to a play, or reading a good book, or listening to a symphony, that's just, sitting out and looking at a meadow. I mean, what's in that? So there's different modes of nature, and happiness experienced in different modes of nature. And if you have some, you get hit in the head with a boulder, okay, well, that's real. But there's things in the mode of goodness. There's all different levels of happiness.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a coarse brute, and okay, that's a certain type of real, tangible, immediate happiness. But it's not the, as the other devotee, it's not lasting, it's not refined, it doesn't bring you to a higher level. It's just gross and crude. And well, that's another argument.
Okay, thank you.
We're waiting to hear from you.
Oh, no, I mean, all of those contributions were very, in line with Krishna consciousness. I was just thinking, one of my sisters, she asked me, like when I turned, it was sometime after I turned 21, she asked me, did you ever go to a bar? And like sit there and order a drink. And, I joined the temple when I was 18 years old. So, they don't allow you in those places unless you're 21. So I told, and I mean, anyways, I told her, yeah, I never went to a bar. I never went and sat there and ordered a drink. And she's like, I mean, it was all in kind of sister brotherly joking, but she's like, oh, that's pathetic. And she's like, you need to understand what it feels like to just go sit there and like order a drink. You need to experience that. And I thought about it, and we did go in some bars. I mean, while distributing books, it's kind of rough places to go, actually. I mean, we would go during the day. It was, shop to shop, and people would be in there hanging out, drinking during the day. Unfortunately, some people are kind of really tough, mad type of people, but we did distribute some books there. So yeah. But then I told her, I said, well, have you ever experienced living in the temple? Have you ever done that? You need to experience it. She didn't have much to say, so you could go back and forth like that, but. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, like all of you were saying, the happiness is temporary and therefore fleeting, therefore insignificant. And if someone was to say, okay, fine, but that's all there is, but then the question, well, is that really, how would you say? Is that all there is? And we would say, no, there's more. There's higher forms of spiritual happiness, in which attaining such happiness, you'll be able to give up those things that ordinarily you really liked and really made you happy. Or else, how could one ever do such a thing? Like we were discussing the other day about Lord Zetlin, what devotees mention quite often. Him want to be a Brahmin. And the London devotees, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, said, sure, we can make you Brahmin, no problem. Like, no problem at all. That's what they went to London for. They went to London to preach and make people Brahmins. So then Zetlin said, okay, well, what do I have to do? And then the devotee said, well, there's these 4 principles. And they went through the principles. And then Zetlin, he said, oh, impossible, I can't do that. His British accent. So people taking so much pleasure or so-called pleasure in these things, how are such people able to give up those things and just chant Hare Krishna and just worship Krishna and be very happy doing that? That is some proof of the power of the spiritual power of chanting Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada, interesting enough, when he was in Bombay, which it is okay to say Bombay, because when you're writing or speaking about a particular place, if it was called that at that time, then you could refer to it as that. So when he was in Bombay, that's Mumbai, but he was in Bombay, he asked the devotees, why do you accept Krishna as God? And devotees were offering different reasons. Someone said, well, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Aham Sarvasya Prabhu, he's the source of all material spiritual worlds. Prabhu said, no, another answer. And then they were going like this, different devotees were giving different answers based on scripture, based on the charyas and different things, and Prabhupada wasn't accepting any of them. And then one new devotee, he raised his hand and he said, I accept I accept the existence of Krishna because when I chant Hare Krishna, I feel it, Srila Prabhupada, I feel Krishna. And I feel the presence of Krishna. And then Prabhupada, he said, yes, very good answer, I accept this answer. So now, of course, that was this particular time, on this particular occasion, Srila Prabhupada was talking with an in-house crowd of devotees. This will definitely not be accepted, when you're talking in some scientific circles or whatever. But it's a very good point that the ecstasy of Krishna consciousness and what devotees experience does give proof to the process. So in this way we could stress that if people have a hard time accepting all of these other things. And like Srila Prabhupada said on a particular occasion, because one of his early disciples was having a hard time accepting the existence of demigods and so many different things. And Prabhupada just told him, do you like chanting Hare Krishna? And the devotee said, yes. And he said, Prabhupada, okay, you just focus on that, just chant Hare Krishna, and you put these other things, like people say, on the back burner. Just put them in the back of your mind, and over time, things will become more clear. So yeah, in relation to ourselves or in relation to communicating these points to others, that's a good way to go. And that's what Srila Prabhupada advised. But yeah, we have to be careful because according to our desires and our meditation, and we do get a corresponding birth, we go to a particular place. So therefore, Krishna is stressing that that we train ourselves to be Krishna conscious, and in this way attain the perfection. All right. Does anybody have? Yes, Jill. Can you pass the mic to her?
Thank you. Okay, so I have a question about the anecdote about the devotee who he was about to hit by a train and he was thinking about his wife as the very last thing. I was thinking about in the third canto when Kapila Dev is speaking to his mother, and there's a part where it's talking about being attached to sadhus and how that's like a really good thing. Because thinking about, okay, so he thought about his wife, and his wife was a devotee as well. So it seems like it'd be easier to just not only not get married, but like not even have friends, just like, because you might think about one of them, like in your Krishna consciousness life or whatever, that like if you really wanted to be safe, you would just be alone. You just shut everybody out so that you weren't attached in any way to anyone. But then like reading that part of the third canto, it's like, no, we should be attached to sadhus. So, I mean, is it something like, because I think I've heard before where like you need to be attached to them as a devotee, like think of them as a Vaishnava rather than their attachment, their like relationship with you. But I think that's tricky and difficult. So I was wondering if you had anything you could say about that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. When we talk about being attached to sadhus, which is very important, that service, that attachment, like in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you get a very good result. Shu shu sho shadadanasya vasudeva kata ruchihi syan mahat sevya vibra punyatirtana shevana. By serving those great souls who are completely free from vice, great service is done and one gains a taste for hearing about Krishna. So and Srila Prabhupada explains in that purport that according to the particular persons you associate with or serve, you get their qualities. So yeah, we associate with sadhus, and the sadhus, they help us become attached to Krishna. but the whole basis of the whole basis of sadhus associating with each other is Krishna consciousness. Now the problem, or some we could say maybe an issue or problem, comes when, especially with family members, because after all we're talking about this devotee thinking about his wife. Now she's also a devotee, but there's a it's not so easy just to put aside all of the kind of natural affection that they have for each other and just think of her as a devotee or as a sadhvi. So that's where the problem comes. Just like someone may have children, and they may treat them as they should treat them as devotees and so on, but it's sometimes difficult to not be overly absorbed in that relationship. That I'm the mother and this is my child, or I'm the father. This is my children. So it becomes a little complicated like that. And therefore, Queen Kunti, she prays, right? What does she pray? Yeah. Cut off my attachment to my sons. So the sons were devotees. Wonderful devotees. But in her, she's teaching us, of course, but in her humble mood, she's saying, please cut off that attachment, any lingering attachment, like in a material sense. So that's what's difficult when we talk about these relationships. But Srila Prabhupada, he was asked the question that what happens if we think of you at the time of death? Do we get the same result as if we were to think of Krishna? And Srila Prabhupada, he said yes. So of course if you think of Srila Prabhupada, but at least at that particular time of death, there's a great emphasis on just being Krishna conscious, just thinking of Krishna, and not anyone else really. I remember there was one devotee, and it was close to the time he was passing away, and I saw different devotees going up to him and kind of like touching his arm, and but it was interesting because each time someone was touch his arm, he'd kind of like move it away. And it almost seemed that he was kind of like, hey, like, kind of leave me alone here. I'm trying to be Krishna conscious, that, anyways. But there is something to that, like you don't want to be caught up or disturbed or distracted, at that particular moment. You just want to think of Krishna. So I don't know if anybody else has something to say about that. I don't know if that...
The famous Sadhu Sangashtika, the first verse, and Kapila Dev tells his mother, after a few verses, first he describes the qualities of the sadhu, Titikshava Karnika, and then he says, well, how did they get that way? Well, because they're pure devotees, you see. And what do? They're always hearing and chanting. They're always glorifying. It says, the symptom of sadhu, that he is intolerant, okay. He engaged in staunch devotional service without deviation. He renounced all other connections, engaged constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Lord. The sadhus don't suffer from material miseries because they're always filled. Then he says, these are the qualities. You must seek attachment to such holy men, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. And then there's the famous verse, Satam Pasangan. So if you are attached to them, then what are you going to do if you're attached to them? Well, you're going to remember their qualities and their activities and how you interrelated with them. So if you die thinking of sadhu, what is the sadhu doing? They're always glorifying me. So you're going to think of Krishna, the glorification of Krishna. And because Prabhupada said, yeah, you can think of me, because how can you think of Prabhupada without thinking of Krishna and his service to Krishna? You know what I mean? So that's all auspicious. So I think that for the real sadhus who are pure devotees, thinking of them means thinking of what they do and what their qualities are, which is always connected to Krishna. So you're going to think of Krishna also. That's my
Thank you. Anyone? You have something, Chad?
Hare Krishna. Well, yeah, I was thinking about tangible yet mystic experiences that devotees frequently have, and one in particular is a story of that Bhakti Nelson told me. Dharma Setu was giving a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture, and Bhakti Nelson was driving in his car, listening to the lecture live, and he started falling asleep at the wheel. And at that time, a devotee in the classroom was falling asleep, and Dharma Setu said, wake up. And Bhakti Nelson was falling asleep, and when he said that, he woke up just in time to swerve around a ladder that was in the middle of a street that if he wouldn't have woke up, he would have ran over it.
It's kind of random ladder.
Yeah, so, and I know there's a lot of different kinds of experiences devotees have kind of like that, so.
So yeah. So the moral of the instruction is listen to Bhagavatam and their instead of chanting Hare Krishna on your beads, listen to Bhagavatam while you're driving.
I think one of the other things about surrounding yourself with people that have the same Krishna conscious is just as siblings. With my mom, one of the things that she had said was the hardest thing for her is going to be leaving her children.
Yeah.
And so hearing that, we as children have to make the decision that there's a time for us to, touch her and pat her and tell her we love her. But there's also a time for us to step back.
Yeah.
And, so when your siblings are telling you, now's the time you need to leave her alone.
Yeah.
Right? And it's very difficult for us to do that, but then to have your siblings kind of there to support you, and that's why you want to be surrounded by people that have the same thought process. Yeah,
it's very important. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, I just don't want them the conclusion to be, it depends on how you see it. In other words, if you, like Prabhupada, I think he said to your father, but I have heard him say it to other people, that at least at that point in time, they were attached to worshiping Lord Shiva. Well, I'll be quick. There was a guy named Kamal, an Indian man, who used to come to the Detroit temple, and he always used to hassle us. Why don't you worship Lord Shiva? Why don't you do this? And we answered for, so many ways from that. And we didn't know that much in those days as well. So finally we just gave up. And when just take Prashadam, don't worry about it. And Prabhupada came. And somehow or other he got into the darshan, and somehow or other he asked Prabhupada. And we thought, well, there it is. Prabhupada's going to smash him. And surprisingly enough, Prabhupada said, oh, very good. And we were shocked. And, what is this? And Prabhupada said, it all depends on how you see Lord Shiva. If you worship Lord Shiva as the greatest of Vaishnavas, then okay, you can worship Lord Shiva. You worship and sincerely worship him in that capacity, not to get a wife like Uma. You have to know what you're doing. So in this same way, because I was thinking that, someone may walk away thinking this is a little cold. You've got a wife or husband who served you for years and helped you through difficult places, and because they flit across your mind, you come back as I don't know what. It just seems unjust or unfair or unreasonable. So, not that I'm a sannyasi, trying to be a sannyasi, so I'm not advocating for dreaming about your wife all the time. But it depends on how you see her. That's a fact. We want to, just as a cap, in conclusion, certainly we want to focus on Krishna. We definitely want to cut our attachments. And we need that. We need that. But it's not that we're cold and indifferent and unappreciative of the service done. There's a right time and a right place, and when it's the time to cut all attachments, but it doesn't mean that you're callous and don't appreciate.
Yeah.
And you weren't saying that.
Yeah, devotees are very affectionate and all that, and yeah, like Mara was saying, there's a time to cut certain things. So, all right. So thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.